It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, we're talking about something I've been talking a lot about in one-on-one sessions. Why did she leave me? A lot of guys are struggling to get closure on relationships that ended, and either they were never really told why, or the reasons they were told for why. It's like, well, if she just talked to me about it, we could have worked it out. And yeah, that's true. And this happens a lot. And I'm going to talk about that. So if you like this content, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. This gets a lot of play in one-on-one sessions. And I do want to thank everybody for their generosity of late with helping me make up income this week. Let's keep it going. It means a lot, both in terms of bills, but also in terms of support. Because, yeah, this is a thing. We often, when we talk about relationships and the concept of stonewalling, it's treated as a very masculine activity. He won't talk about his feelings. He won't talk about... But women do this too. And women do this in a way that seems nice, but it's really not. It's cruel to everyone involved. However, when you're dealing with conflict aversion, there's always reasons. And because the person is conflict averse, trying to push them to have a conversation it's only going to trigger that conflict aversion. And some people are conflict averse in different ways. The important thing to realize about, a relationship ended because one or both partners didn't communicate, is even though there are reasons, that was a choice. And that choice reflects on them, not you. If they tried to talk to you, male or female former partner, if they tried to talk to you and you wouldn't have the conversation, that's on you. If you tried to talk to them and they wouldn't have the conversation, barring only a few examples. Like there are some caveats, but not many, and we'll get to those, so don't worry. But trying to have the conversation is always better than not trying to have the conversation. One, there are better and worse ways in trying to have the conversation, but trying to have the conversation is always better than not. And what a lot of people say is, well, I tried to have the conversation. I was criticized for how I did it. There are valid criticisms there. One of the real relationship killers is that any criticism is treated as abusive, and it's not. There are different forms of criticism. Everybody has to be prepared to hear some criticism, even if it hits really, really hard. It's baffling to me how many people come here and leave comments. You need to learn how to handle more criticism. They have no fucking idea how much criticism I get on the daily. And again, if I really couldn't handle criticism, I'd have comments turned off or moderated. But I find a lot of people deflect and project what they're afraid of. So if you find yourself going, you need to handle criticism better, to other people, consider perhaps that you're very sensitive to it. And, that doesn't mean you have to get better at it. It is our relationship with criticism that really determines how well we handle it, right? If you are terrified of it, obviously you're not going to take it well when you hear anything remotely like it. If you can't separate somebody didn't like this from it's a bad thing, and I'm a bad person, because a lot of the time criticism really comes down to the person didn't like it. Does that mean it was wrong? No. Does that mean you shouldn't have done it? Well, I don't like the word should. You know, if you don't want the person to be upset, don't do it again. But that doesn't mean you did anything wrong by doing it in the first place. Now, if the person told you it bothered them and you did it again, different story. If, you know, it might not be morally wrong, but if you don't want the person to feel that way and you did agree to work on it, okay, well, you agreed. You see where I'm coming at with this? If you can kind of catch it and go, all right, let's look at this dispassionately for a minute. We all have buttons that we don't respond well to certain things. And we all have limited distress tolerance. No matter how tolerant you are of distress, if you are constantly operating under a high level of distress, you don't have much left, right? If that rainwater bucket is this far from full, it's going to overflow in the next rainstorm instead of being able to, you know, take on more. So talking about feelings, if it was a relationship where both people were keeping things from each other, if you were keeping things, important things about yourself from the other person because you feared rejection, high likelihood the other person was keeping things from you as well. And eventually you either got to show that card to each other or the relationship is not going to work. You cannot just carry that around in a romantic relationship forever. It just doesn't work. Eventually, it's either going to come out deliberately and directly, or it's going to come out accidentally and sideways and in ways that are weird. So that's the only choice you really have. None of this is intended to make people feel blamed. This is, okay, this is what I can do for next time. Because I find a lot of guys, the reason they're still so stuck on a past relationship that didn't work is because they want to know what didn't work so they can avoid doing it again. And that's really good. But you're never going to get perfect answers from an ex-partner. You may be out of touch, or they may be, as I'm seeing, I say this to so many guys. Sometimes it's like other guys, but a lot of the times it's women that they break up and then they tell them what the issues were. Or they hear about it through proxies and the guy's like, well, if I'd known, I could have done this differently, but I didn't know. And I say to them, you know, at the end of the day, she chose not to have the conversation. And, you know, she had her reasons, but that's on her. Water break, that one's on me. And that is where accountability and really coming at relationships from a mature perspective. Now, if this is a relationship that happened in your early to mid-20s, congratulations, you were not a fully formed person, neither was she. Probably ain't going to happen the exact same way again. But if it wasn't, here's some things to watch for. Keep in mind, people who stonewall. It's not always deliberate manipulation. It's not intentionally blocking the viewpoint. It's a self-protective, usually fear response that a person may not be entirely aware they're having. And that makes it really difficult. You know, it's very important to assess the relationship. How often did your partner actually say, I don't like this. This is a problem for me? If the answer was never, and they were this wonderful angel that you put up on a pedestal, something was wrong there. They weren't telling you the truth, because there's no way that was the inner reality there. one thing about me that a lot of people don't like, and they're not my people. The people who know me and believe this about me, they really like it, because I'll say to them, if I've got a problem with you, you'll know. And if I'm not talking about it, there's a reason I'm not talking about it. Sometimes it's like, I'm going to try to figure out if this is a me problem instead of the other person problem. But if I don't tell someone, that's my choice. That is not something someone made me do. If it's something that does bother me, and I do think, yeah, this isn't me, this is the other person, I will tell them. And that's how I usually get called a bitch. And that's why I don't like the word bitch. But I stand by that. Because part of it, somebody just zoomed by outside, is if the person can't handle me going, okay, this isn't working for me and this is why. Or I can't do this and this is why. Notice I don't phrase it as, you did this to me. It's, this isn't working. This isn't working for me. I can't deal with this. It's not blame. A lot of people hear blame, but it's not blame. It's just, this situation is not working for me. So let's work this out. That is all anybody can do. And if you do that in a relationship and the other person doesn't, that is on them, not you. Because I believe the guys when they say, I would have understood. Sometimes there are communication style differences, but again, you can only discover that if both parties are willing to have the conversation. So, one of the things people do that creates this, I can't talk to him, is they don't bring it up at a good time. It builds and builds and builds and builds until, the car going to an event is a big couple's red zone where one or both of them are nervous, and so a whole bunch of shit that comes out that ain't actually about what's going on. And setting up times to talk, like just to talk. It doesn't always have to be about bad stuff. It's just, how are you? Is there anything I can be supporting you on that I'm not doing? Those can be very positive conversations. If you have those conversations regularly, stuff doesn't build up. You shouldn't be dreading those conversations. If people are waiting to just lay this entire list of complaints on you in that moment, that's an issue too. Nobody is going to walk into that happily, right? If it's just, I'm going to hear 30 things that are wrong with me every single time we do this. That's not, that's not the point of them. Starting conversations are on positives is very important. And a lot of people don't do that. They do, I love you, but, or I want this to work, but. That's not starting on a positive, right? It's not just about saying something positive. It's about your mindset. And if you're coming in afraid yourself, if you're coming in spoiling for a fight because this is what's always happened, then your partner's going to pick up on that, and you're going to seem like, well, it is the same brain response as a caged animal. And talking under those circumstances is incredibly difficult. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, these are all things that you can control. This is not blame. This is stuff you can control. How do I stay calm when I'm not calm? Well, yeah, in those circumstances, the best thing to do is use those I feel statements and admit that you're not, you're not equalized. You're not regulated. Take responsibility for that and say, if I feel myself getting really worked up, I'm going to take 10, 15-minute breaks or something like that at the beginning of the conversation, right? Own that. Take responsibility for that. That sets a playing field that's way more conducive to productive conversation. And those I feel statements are very important. I have noticed more and more abuse of I feel statements by people younger and younger. To me, it is better for somebody to just go, you're wrong, than go, I feel that you are wrong. Because one is just, yeah, they're making an accusation. You're an asshole. I feel that you are an asshole. Like, one is mean but honest. The other is mean and bullshit. You don't feel like somebody's an asshole. You feel hurt or scared or angry or something. The thing after an I feel statement must be a feeling. And one of the things they recommend if somebody is a chronic stonewaller, if they always run away from emotional conversations, and this is a bit of a catch-22, but it does work, that especially a lot of women, but more and more I'm learning a lot of men are also motivated by this. They don't want to hurt the other person. They don't. They think hurting somebody is a terrible thing that you should never do. The truth, however, is if somebody constantly pulling away or frequently pulling away or regularly pulling away, that hurts too. So if you make it clear that the person is hurting you, you feel hurt by them pulling away. They may go, I'm not pulling away. Well, when you appear to be pulling away, it hurts. I feel like guilty and like I've maybe done something wrong. And like I've done something wrong is not really a feel statement. That's a thought connected to a feeling. But, explaining why you feel that way it creates different, what I call happy math on It's Not Therapy, right? If they're avoiding hurting you and they recognize that they're guaranteed to hurt you by pulling away, they might hurt you by talking, well, you're changing the equation with the happy math. Now, you got to be prepared to hear somebody say, well, I'm frightened to talk to you. Well, why? And the next thing they say, it may be about you. It may be about one of their parents or an ex. And it sucks when people have brought baggage from previous relationships, familiar or romantic, into yours. Because if you're being judged by something somebody else did, you can't do anything about that. If somebody is damaged by stuff you didn't do, a previous partner did, you didn't break that, you can't fix that. And that sucks. It feels incredibly unfair. It feels helpless because you didn't break it and then somebody's trying to make you buy it. That the responsibility is on the other person to recognize that it wasn't you and own that those feelings are theirs. And this is a really important thing for any kind of relationship, unless it is abusive. Nobody is making you feel that thing. Something they did may have led to you feeling that way, but nobody made you feel that way, right? Now, like I said, as long as it's not abusive, if somebody is threatening you, yes, that makes you feel afraid, right? If somebody is humiliating you, yes, that's, that made you feel humiliated. But somebody did something that led to you getting angry, well, it was probably the story you told yourself about what the other person did, not what they did per se, that made you angry. You are responsible for your own feelings, and you are responsible for dealing and processing your own feelings. So nobody made you blow up. Nobody made you throw that thing. You can forgive yourself for having that reaction. I have to all the time. PTS, sometimes the D gets added back on and I gotta suck it back up and recover. But the responsibility for knowing if I push, if I fill that bucket too much, if I push that distress tolerance too far, I'm going to become a person I don't like. That's very motivating to do the work I need to do to be, good beast instead of dark beast. And a lot of people walk around afraid of those limitations, and that's not necessary. It can be, I can control this. I will do my best to stay regulated, to moderate, to really manage my levels. And if I get pushed past those limits sometimes, okay, happens to everybody. We have steps to, minimize the blast, and when you don't do it, you're accountable. You see what I mean? Like, everything should not be about terror. You should not be afraid of your partner or your ex-partner. Some people still walk around in fear of it happening again, right? And one of the things that leads to is catastrophizing in a way that is very, very confusing to the other person. You've probably been on the receiving end of some always or never statement. Like, you always do this. You never care. You never notice. It's like, what are you talking about? You can think of 3 examples off the top of your head that you did the thing, he or she said they never do. Or you can think of multiple times you avoided doing that thing you always do. Always and never statements are brainworms. They're bad for self-talk. They're bad for other talk. You better be 100% sure it is an always or a never before you say it. Sometimes it's true. Most of the time it's not. And if that comes out of your mouth and it's not true, well, you've just falsely accused the person, and you better own that. So, if they point out to you, this has happened to me so often, that someone's like, you always do this, or you've never done that. And it's like, oh yeah, remember that time? I did exactly that. Well, yeah. Well, that's never. Well, it was only one time. One time is not never. When somebody's hitting that point, then they're having an emotional response that probably isn't about you, and they're not communicating effectively. And again, being too understanding can damage relationships. Hear me out on this one. This is a sort of thing of, the whole women like assholes. Song said this to me the other day, and it was brilliant, that the whole romance trope of the guy starting off as an asshole and then getting better. Because I've never understood this. I'm like, a guy acts like a jerk off the top, like, fuck it, nope. I'm not rewarding bad behavior. But from Song's perspective, and I do think this is a more typical woman thing, because I know I'm not. Tomboy, she's a girly girl. It's, you've seen him at his worst, and then he got better. Instead of thinking things are like this, and then all of a sudden them taking a dark turn. You want to know what you're getting into. And my attitude is like, yeah, I don't want to get into that. And I don't want to give anybody the impression that I will ever accept that treatment. No, I can understand your feelings. I don't accept your behavior. And if you are, and a lot of women are taught, oh, just let him, oh, just because it's this passing a nuclear bomb back and forth, mainly between men and women, but it infects same-sex relationships because gender roles are so strong. People assume the masculine role and the feminine role, even in same-sex relationships, the person who's always grumbly, and the other person who's just, oh, I understand. And that's not healthy. All the Vivzy Pop things of the hot mess, Fitz, or Angel Dust, and the Aussie, less Husk. That's coming soon to this channel. More has been hotel content. But that whole thing of, oh, I'm a hot mess. I'm a disaster. I'm going to keep going out there and fucking up and screwing everything. And then I'm going to come back and this perfect person is going to make it all okay. That's not respecting your partner. It's not objectifying, but it is you're expecting your partner to always tell you it's okay when it's not okay. And in order to be ready for a relationship, you have to be ready for the fact that sometimes it's not going to be okay with the other person. And you are going to have to make some changes, not to who you are, but the way you do things to make a relationship work. You can't always just be a hot fucking mess. And she can't always just be a hot fucking mess. The truth is, if you constantly forgive her hot fucking messness, she will leave you for a guy who will push back. She will. I've seen it happen so many times. Awesome guy, put up with this woman's shit. And I've seen this in same-sex relationships too. But put up with somebody's shit. And then they take off with a bad boy who treats them like crap. Because they know their behavior is wrong and not helping them. And they're looking for somebody to save them from themselves. And you going, oh, it's okay. They know that's not true. They know that's not true. Even if you believe it is true, they don't think it is. And it's going to drive a wedge between you. And so catastrophizing is one thing. But being a doormat, it hurts the relationship. It doesn't help the relationship. If you are giving up your dreams for the relationship, that will eventually come back to bite you. Now, sometimes you're like, okay, I'd like to do this, but it's less important to me than the relationship. If a relationship is your priority, that's really valid. I think a lot of guys out there don't feel like they can say what I want more than anything is a loving monogamous relationship, maybe some kids, that I want to raise. I don't want to help take care of. I want to parent. And that's really important to state. There are multiple ways to have a family, but, that's perfectly valid to want. Now, be prepared that if you're with somebody who doesn't want that maybe not be the right person for you. And that doesn't mean they're not a great person, but these things, really knowing what you want, that's the big challenge, is that changes in life. And it is very, very important to really know yourself to make a relationship work. Because if you don't know yourself, then the other person can't possibly know you, because the only way they can get to know you is through communication. And the other person may not know themselves. They may not be honest with themselves. I'm one of those people that needs to have an impact. I can't just sit back and let an injustice happen. I can't save myself by sacrificing another person. It's just not in me. I kind of envy people who can, but it's not me, and I have to be true to myself. So, I see something wrong, I'm gonna say something, even if I take some shit. Now, I think because of that, you guys know if I'm telling you something, I may be wrong about it, but it is what I sincerely believe. There are trade-offs to everything, right? Not everybody's willing to sign up to be a part of that, and that's fine. Not everybody is into somebody as opinionated as me. In fact, I get most people aren't. I accept that, but this is me. And when I suppress that, I'm miserable. I'm not one of those just go along to get along people. I'm not. Now, I'm not cruel about it, right? I'm not being an asshole. I joke that no, I'm an asshole. But that's also something I have to keep in check, right? Like, don't Kratos everybody, right? That's what Kratos had to meet Atreus halfway. That, yes. You were probably young. You didn't really know yourself. He or she didn't really know themselves. She, most likely, based on law of averages. And she probably did something wrong. And she probably did something that hurt you. And I ask you to question, did you put her up on a pedestal? Did you think she was perfect? And so you miss certain things that probably if you treated her as more of a woman and less of an angel, she would have felt less like she was disappointing you for having idiosyncrasies, quirks, and flaws, right? Everybody has flaws. And flaws can be kind of, that can be a very subjective thing, right? Every good quality has a bad quality. Every bad quality is a good quality. I see that whole thing of, not being able to let an injustice stand. I see it as equal parts good quality and bad quality. And that's how I honestly look at these aspects of character. It's not attributes. It's not positive attributes and negative attributes. It's every quality has a good sign and a good side and a bad side. And it's all about balancing that. And when I find especially guys, when they fall in love, they fall hard. And yeah, everything just seems like she is just perfect and everything is great. And that's a kind of scary role for a woman to realize she's in, because trust me, women can tell you everything that is wrong with them, even things they don't believe are wrong. It's why I've been talking more about, I therefore declare I am old, fat, and ugly according to internet standards. I don't do that because I believe it. I say that as a recognition, like, let's be honest about what the expectation is in the Instagram era. I don't have a face full of fillers. I don't have a ton of surgery. I didn't start doing Botox at 28. I don't do Botox. But this is what the world sees. I hear you. I get it. Fuck off. And I do think it's important for men to understand that this is what women go through in a way that men don't. The standards for men, everybody's like, oh, 4. Okay, but Chris Helmsworth is in his 40s now, guys. Women don't get superhero parts in their 40s. It is very different. And, they made allowances for Hugh Jackman to do Wolverine without being quite so ripped. I mean, yes, the character allowed for it. But you got to understand that women are raised with this expectation that if you're not perfect, you won't keep your man. He'll cheat on you. He'll leave you for someone younger, prettier, and nicer. This is drummed in. Even if somebody denies that, it's drummed in. And so every woman, every time an opinion is voiced, a woman is fighting that monster. So if you don't put her up, and that doesn't mean don't be complimentary. It's very important to be complimentary. Honest compliments. And use statements when that, start on a positive note. Really practice, and this may seem like to make no sense at first, but try it. Trust me, it makes a big difference. Even when you're upset with someone, connect to their good qualities. You know, if somebody's doing something that seems irrationally selfish, going, this isn't like you, you're a really caring, considerate person, right? That is giving them an opening to go, yeah, okay, they see that. And then they may go like, look, I'm just really overwhelmed. I can't take all this stress and pressure anymore. I need help balancing something like that, right? Like when you start affirming and validating somebody, you know, in a healthy relationship, they'll do the same thing for you. And then things don't get so heated. The wedge doesn't get, you know, driven between you. That's telling someone it is safe to come up short of perfection here. You know, I'm not going to think you're bad just because you're not perfect. And so many people are laboring under that. And so a lot of people bail out of a relationship because it's either that or, wow, that was cat hair in front of the camera. It's either that or finally let the mask drop and let the other person see that you don't have it all together. You're not perfect. You're not this wonderful, forever understanding angel, or in Ozzy's case from Hell of a Boss, demon. But, you know, people will leave relationships before they hit that point. And so that is probably what happened if a relationship just melted down and you never got a reason why. Some version of that, because otherwise people have the conversation, right? And for whatever reason, they left. The relationship ended because they left. They left instead of having the conversation. That's all you can know for sure. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Thanks for watching Manly Mondays.